Not long after I tweeted this, I was attacked by 4 armed men. They violently forced me into their car. They put a blindfold on my eyes. I didn't know where I was going. I had never been this terrified in my whole life. For 11 days, I was handcuffed, blindfolded, and beaten up. They stripped me out of everything, including my name. They called me 41. They never allowed me to remove the blindfold. I lost track of time, and the screams of torture from outside my prison cell kept me awake during the night. I had lived most of my life as an outsider. For the first 13 years of my life, I lived in south of Saudi Arabia. So I was the Egyptian kid that lives in Saudi. And when my family moved back to Egypt, I was the kid that lived most of his life in Saudi Arabia. And at the age of 17, I decided to become strictly religious. So my family and my friends called me an extremist. Being an outsider shaped my view of life. It made me able to question authority and challenge systematic abuse of power. But I was always fearful of the consequences, especially after what happened to one of my best friends from the college days. Yasser was an activist who was abducted from the streets of Cairo. They brutally tortured him for 6 months to confess that he was a member of a terror cell that he was never a member of. They set him free after 6 months, but after they broke him down and shattered his self-esteem. This experience has terrified me. In the following years, I kept my head down, fearing the consequences, and I decided to focus on my own career. I finished my MBA in 2018. Shortly after that, I joined Google as a marketing manager for Egypt. 2 years later, in 2010, I was sent to Dubai to lead Google's marketing operations in the Middle East. I lived with my family in a fancy villa, and I had a high income. But there was something inside of me that was not happy. I wasn't happy about what was going on in my own home country. I believe that people like me, who are privileged with their experience and education, has a moral responsibility to contribute back. Little did I know that only 6 months after that, this internal urge that I had from within led me to take part in what changed my life forever. On the 10th of June 2010, while browsing my Facebook feed, I saw a corpse of a young man named Khalid Saeed, who was tortured by police officers. I was overwhelmed with anguish and powerlessness as I cried seeing his mangled face. I was devastated with the fact that most likely the killers of Khalid will get away with their crime. I decided to do something, so I anonymously started a Facebook page and called it "We Are All Khalid Saeed." The page became a hub for activists and young Egyptians from all over Egypt who had one thing in common: they wanted to see a better Egypt. In a few months, my co-admin, Abdurrahman Mansour, and myself ran various online and offline campaigns, trying to call for to bring justice for Khalid. State security attempted to identify us because we were both anonymous, but thankfully, for our good luck, they failed in doing that. A few months later, on January 14th, 2011, I was in total disbelief as I saw Ben Ali, the Tunisian dictator, on a plane struggling to find a country that would accept his plane to land at. It was such an unprecedented moment in the history of the Arab world. That day, I posted a status update on the page that had about 300,000 people at the time. Today is the 14th of January. Police Day is on 25th of January. If 100,000 of us get out and march in the streets, no one can stop us. The call to protest flooded social media. Over 1 million Egyptians received the invitation on Facebook. On January 25th, tens of thousands of Egyptians marched across the streets of Cairo and other cities, breaking the barrier of fear. I found myself abducted from the streets 2 days later at 1 a.m., a few hours before millions of Egyptians marched the streets calling for the removal of Hosni Mubarak from power. I was set free after experiencing the worst 11 days of my life, to find myself becoming an accidental celebrity. I came out to a world that was completely foreign to me. There were 1 million people on the streets and 1 million people on the Facebook page. I was overwhelmed by the media attention, and my face became recognizable by people I don't even know. I was totally over my head and couldn't distinguish between those who try to help me and those who try and harm me or use me. It was only a few days after my release when Mubarak was forced out of power. His downfall was a historical moment for me and for millions of Egyptians. Fighting this regime united us. I thought that our dream for a free and democratic Egypt was about to be realized, but I was naive. Instead, the dream turned into a nightmare. In the course of the next 2 years, polarization brought the worst out of everyone. Politicians, activists, the army officials couldn't trust each other. And we found ourselves in polarizing lose-lose situation. That led to major protests in June 2013 that resulted in the army removing Mohamed Morsi, the first democratically elected president of Egypt, after 1 year of being in power. The police officers aimed live ammunition, killing thousands of peaceful protesters. And religious extremists launched terrorism activities in response that targeted both civilians and security personnel. Thousands of civilians were killed and tens of thousands were imprisoned. I had no option but to leave the country for my own safety and the safety of my family. As the plane was taking off, tears ran down my face. The feelings of shame and guilt overwhelmed me. I felt like I abandoned my cause, abandoned my friends, and betrayed the role that was thrust upon me. I moved back to California to work for Google in Google's headquarters, hoping that I could heal from everything that I've experienced and go back to my ordinary normal life. But I found myself falling into a sinkhole of depression, the likes of which I have never experienced before. In my depression, the imprisonment in my mind prompted me to learn more about myself, reflect on my past, and make peace with it, and pushed me for change. This time, unlike the past, the change was coming from within. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share with you today some of what I learned, and I'm looking forward to what is waiting for me in the future. I learned that life is a never-ending journey for self-discovery, in which we learn from our past, and we also learn from the wisdom of others. I learned that just like how we instinctively use our emotions to guide our reason, we will make better decisions if we use our reason to guide our emotions. I learned that the importance of listening to my inner self by not suppressing the feelings of fear, pain, and vulnerability. I learned to recognize those feelings, accept them, and gently work on dealing with them rather than avoiding them. I learned that hell is when we violate our own moral values, and heaven is when we stick by them. The belief in oneself and one's own ideas make an activist willing to take challenges bigger than their own selves. But that same belief could make us fall victim to our own egos. Attention for the sake of attention cheapens our messages and harms our causes. I learned that public attention is a means, not a goal, especially in an era of social media. I learned that the adrenaline rush of likes, shares, and follows could blind our sights and get us to serve our own egos rather than serving our own causes. I learned that our self-worth is not what others think of us or what we have achieved or what we own, Our self-worth is what we think of ourselves and what are the values that we live by. The more I experience life, the less I believe that people are not good or evil. Humans are complex species. We all have good and bad within us. I learned that it's not an effective strategy to be extreme and exclusive while advocating for diversity and tolerance. I also learned that cops are not bastards and activists are not saints. We need to focus our energy on designing checks and balances that makes everyone accountable for their actions. I learned that understanding our opponents and engaging with their perspectives helps us empathize with them and understand where they come from and how to effectively deal with them. I learned that I should always strive to expose my best side to everyone, regardless of which side of themselves that they show me. I learned that it is important to question authority, but we also need to continuously question our own values and actions. Being curious, self-critical, and open to feedback accelerates our learning process and maximizes our impact. It is less challenging to spend our energy pointing out to the faults within systems and blaming it on the people who run these systems. What we have to realize, though, is that the people who run these systems are products of these systems as much as the system is a product of them. And we need to spend our energy understanding the root causes of our problems and design for tackling them at the system level. Every time reality didn't meet expectations, I always used to ask, what was wrong with reality? But now I learned my lesson, that before asking what was wrong with reality, I need to ask what was wrong and unrealistic with my expectations. This way, you're better able to change reality. I learned that the more fundamental a change is, the more time it requires people to embrace it. So just be patient. I also learned that taking part in an angry mob is not an effective strategy. Angry mobs lack depth and substance. I learned that for history to repeat itself, that only happens when we don't learn from our past. Life is a beautiful journey. If we decide to face our fears rather than avoiding them, if we strive to be better versions of ourselves while realizing that no matter what we do, we'll continue to be imperfect humans. I wanted to end my speech with a note that one of my dear friends wrote on my birthday. I wish you all what she wished me. Dear friends, I wish you will continue to be free enough from the ground to change the world. But I also wish you have enough roots to change yourself. I wish that your confidence keeps you strong. But I also wish that you will have enough humbleness that would allow you to receive love. I wish you have the wisdom to know that you have reached no truth. I wish you a continuous pursuit. Thank you.